Ever since COVID-19 mutated into a zombie plague and infected 80% of the population, times have been tough for us all. I, however, was able to survive by relying on two magical items. First of all, magical plants to keep the infected at bay, and second of all, an infinite s'more dispenser. Well, infinite chocolate chip and marshmallow dispenser, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. There's just one problem. The microwave stopped working as soon as the power went out, the burner wasn't very far behind, and I'm quickly running out of matches, so I'm in a bit of a predicament, where I have food, but no way to cook it. So looks like I'll have to make like life and find a way. Luckily, the last thing I learned about in science is energy transfer, which is really just what cooking is, transferring heat into food. Most of the time, the source of this energy is electricity, but given as that isn't available now, I need to find a different source, a source that will never run out. I'm going to use the sun. That's right, I'm building a solar oven. I mentioned this earlier, but let's explore it now. There are three kinds of energy transfer: conduction, convection, and radiation. Conduction is the most simple of the energy transfers. Hot object touches cold object, heat transfers from the hot object to the cold one. This will be useful for my solar oven, as it will mean that as the outside of my food heats up, the inside of the food will too. Convection is kind of like conduction, but with liquid and air rather than solids. A heat source heats up part of the material, and the material spreads out and heats the entire thing up. This will be used as the main mechanic of my solar oven. The air inside the solar oven will heat up from the sun, and that will heat up my food. Radiation is where energy is released in its purest form, and it skips all that needing a medium to travel through stuff, and just travels through empty space. Radiation energy from the sun is where I will get my heat from. Radiation heats up the air heats up the outside of my food, and the outside of my food heats up the inside of my food. With all that out of the way, it's time to look at my design. Any decent solar oven works with two basic mechanics. A, let in heat from the sun, and B, keep the heat in. First, I'll work with keeping the heat in, as this will determine what I use as the base for my oven. I'm going to use something that is easy to get, designed to keep things warm, and has a built-in lid. I'm going to use a pizza box. Now let's talk about the getting heat part of things. First of all, I'm gonna need to make some holes, otherwise the sunlight just won't get in. But the problem is, if I have holes, then all the heat's just gonna escape. That kind of defeats the purpose of using a pizza box. So, I'm going to cover these holes with plastic wrap so that the heat doesn't escape. Probably. So that's all well and good, but a pizza box with some plastic wrap covered holes isn't gonna do much. I'm going to need to add a little something to give it an extra pep. Aluminum foil is a great conductor, so if I put some at the bottom of my solar oven, it'll heat up, and touching it will hopefully have the same effect as touching a hot road on a summer day. Now I think I'm finally ready to start building. So this is going to be fairly simple. We're just going to stab into there with scissors, realize we need a knife, realize we need two hands to cut open the box so can't record ourselves while cutting open the box, thumbtack some plastic wrap on there, put the aluminum foil in the box, and we're ready for the ice cube test. What is the ice cube test, you ask? Well, I was just about to get to that if you wouldn't have interrupted me. The ice cube test is where you take one ice cube on the ground, one ice cube in the solar oven, wait 10 minutes, and see which one has melted more. Basically, so that you can get a comparison to see how much better or worse your solar oven is than the ground. We got two ice cubes. We're putting one on the ground. We're putting the other in my solar oven. 10 minutes later, we have our results. Well, so it's time to ask myself the same question I ask every time I look in the mirror. What went wrong and why? Well, a couple of things. First of all, the idea to have small windows was a stupid, dumb, small brain idea. If it's bad to have a bigger window, then why have a window in the first place? Huh? Answer me that, past Xander. So anyways, while it's true that having a larger window leads to more air escaping, it also leads to much more heat being captured, which more than makes up for it. Now as for that pesky aluminum foil, it needs to die. It gets hot, yes, but only as hot as its surroundings. As is, all it does is conduct heat out of the solar oven and into the surrounding air, which is useless for me and speeds up global warming. You hear that, aluminum? You're killing the Earth! But we're not done yet. Oh, no. Because apparently conductors are bad to put inside a solar oven. Well, okay, so how about I put in the opposite of a conductor? Will that work? Will it? I don't know, but hopefully it will. Okay, so I guess it's time to building again. I forgot to take footage of me putting miracle cloth on the bottom of the solar oven, so here are some pictures of Appa to keep you entertained. So my second test is done, and it looks like it's still more efficient just to put the ice cube on the ground, but hey, now it's less more efficient, so that's an improvement, I guess. So it still doesn't work, and that's because of holes! This thing is filled with holes! Holes, I tell you! What's so bad about holes, you ask? Well, they take all of that precious, hard-earned, innocent heat and shove it back out into the air. Forget aluminum, it's the holes that are killing the Earth! It's the holes that must die! But such an unholy enemy requires an equally holy weapon. We need to use miracle cloth. Alright, so I duct taped the whole thing and made a lid so that I could get in. Thankfully, I didn't break the plastic. What? So I patched up the plastic, and now it's time for test number 3. Fast forward 10 minutes. And clearly, the forces of nature are conspiring against me. But I say to hell with the forces of nature, because I've still got one last trick up my sleeve. And it involves the very same thing I cursed to death earlier. You heard me. I'm using aluminum foil. So I'm gonna use aluminum panels, sort of like this oven right here that I showed you earlier. Probably should have just used that design. And to do that, I'm probably just gonna cut over the top of this box to put my solar oven in there, wrap aluminum foil around each of the panels of the box, and it'll all be good. Just need to make sure not to break it. Okay, new plan. So I've got these cardboard panels that I cut off the box here. I'm gonna wrap them in aluminum, duct tape them to the solar oven, prop them up with pencils, and hope it all works out. Alright, so this thing is around as stable as my mental health, so I couldn't get any footage of me building it, so here are pictures of Momo to keep you entertained. I know the footage doesn't look very impressive, but I can assure you that the marshmallow was gooey and the chocolate chips were melty. So it was a long, arduous journey, but in the end, it worked! It worked! It worked!